The sun has departed.
For the last time.
My silliness aside, would you please stand up with us? This one, yeah, if your voice runs out, it's all built into the song. So it's all right. till my knees give way. I will lift my voice and shout a grateful song. I will sing until my voice is gone. Exhausted every single way, with our bodies weak, with our voices strained. You are still a song in us that never ends. We can't help but stand and start it all again. So when we've exhausted every single way, with our bodies weak and with our voices strained, till my knees give way. I will lift my voice and shout a grateful song. I will sing until my voice is gone. Till I raise my hands until my strength has faded. Standing out until my knees give way. I will lift my voice and shout a grateful song. I will sing until my voice is gone. I will sing until my voice is gone.
Alright, if you got anything left.
Just kind of squeak past the finish line on that. Oh, my sorrow and heavy my sin, lost without hope, no place to begin. Your love made a way and that mercy come in. When death was arrested, my life began. Flesh was redeemed, only beauty remains. My open heart was given away. My morning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested, my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame over me, no more. There's a place where mercy reigns and never dies. There's a place with streams of grace flow deep and wide, where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you, I'm in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white, I owe all to you, I owe all to you, Jesus. There's a place where sin and shame are powerless, where my heart speaks with God and forgiveness, where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you, I'm in all of you. When your love ran red and my sin washed white, I owe all to you, I owe all to you. Here by holy ground, here on holy ground, here I bow down, here I bow down, here on holy water, here you save my life, here I bow down, here I bow down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you, I'm in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white, I owe all to you, I owe all to you. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you, I'm in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white, I owe all to you, I owe all to you, Jesus. There's a place where mercy reigns just love how it lives up to its name. It's just a very simple song, and I think the message is very powerful. Just to align yourself that way with God. Simplicity, longing for purity, to worship you in spirit and truth, only you. Oh, strip it all away, till only you remain. I'm coming back to my first love, only you. You're the reason I sing, the reason I sing. Yes, my heart will sing how I love you. And forever I'll sing, forever I'll sing. Yes, my heart will sing how I love you. Go with my broken song to you, the perfect one, to worship you in spirit and truth, only you. Give me a childlike heart, lead me to where you are, 'cause I'm coming back to my first love, only you. You're the reason I sing, the reason I sing. Yes, my heart will sing how I love you. And forever I'll sing, forever I'll sing. Yes, my heart will sing how I love you. How I love you. How I love you. How I love you. My first love. How I love you. How I love you. How I love you. My first love. You're the reason I sing, the reason I sing. Yes, my heart will sing how I love you. And forever I'll sing, forever I'll sing. Yes, my heart will sing You're the one who seeked us out, and you found us. And we responded when we found you. You made a way for us through your Son. A way that we couldn't make ourselves. We thank you for that miracle and that promise. And the fact that you've never given up on us. You've never stopped seeking us. Even if we forget sometimes and we do our own thing. You still keep after us. Thank you for your love, Father. In Jesus' name, amen.
Head on over. All right. Finding your seats and your places. Everybody's finding their way in. This is probably, even though The Sneetches is one of my favorites, probably my top favorite, this is really high up there in the list of books that I enjoy from Dr. Seuss, which is a long list. It's one of the better ones, and it's had a couple movie adaptations. So it's been out there. I still think the creme de la creme is this. So we are going to be Horton. Here's that. All right. Horton, Here's a Who by Dr. Seuss. On the 15th of May, in the jungle of Newell, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool, he was splashing, enjoying the jungle's great joys, when Horton the elephant heard a small noise. So Horton stopped splashing. He looked toward the sound. That's funny, he said. There's no one around. Then he heard again, just a very faint yelp, as if some tiny person were calling for help. I'll help you, said Horton. But who are you? Where? He looked and he looked. He could see nothing there but a small speck of dust blowing past through the air. I say, I've never heard tell of a small speck of dust that was able to yell. So you know what I think? I think that there must be someone on top of that small speck of dust, some sort of creature of very small size, too small to be seen by an elephant's eyes. Some poor little person who's shaking with fear that he'll blow in the pool. He has no way to steer. I'll just have to help him because, after all, a person's a person, no matter how small. So gently and using the greatest of care, Horton stretched his great trunk through the air, and he lifted a dust speck and carried it over and placed it down safe on a very soft clover. Humph, humphed a voice. 'Twas a sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said, humph, too. Why, that speck is as small as a hairpin, a person on that wide that never has been. Believe me, said Horton, I tell you sincerely, my ears are quite keen, and I heard it quite clearly. What's more, I know there's a person down there, and what's more, quite likely there's two, even three, even four. Quite likely a family, for all that we know, a family with children just starting to grow. So please, Horton said, as a favor to me, try not to disturb them, just please let them be. I think you're a fool, laughed the sour kangaroo. And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me too, you're the biggest blamed fool in the jungle of Newell. And the kangaroos plunged in the cool of the pool. What terrible splashing, the elephant frowned. What, I can't let that very small person get drowned. I've got to protect them. I'm bigger than they. So he picked up the clover and hustled away. Through the high jungle treetops, the news quickly spread. He talks to dust specks. He's out of his head. Why, look at him walk with that speck on that flower. And Horton walked worrying almost an hour. Should I put this speck down? Horton thought with alarm. If I do, these small persons may come to great harm. I can't put it down, and I won't. After all, a person's a person, no matter how small. Then Horton stopped walking. The speck voice was talking. The voice was so faint he could just barely hear it. "Speak up, please," said Horton. He put his ear near it. "My friend," came the voice, "you're a very fine friend. You've helped all us folks on this dust speck to no end. You've saved all our houses, our ceilings and floors. You've saved all our churches and grocery stores." "You mean," Horton gasped, "you have buildings there too?" "Oh yes," piped the voice, "we most certainly do. I know," called the voice, "I'm too small to be seen, but I'm a mayor of a town that is friendly and clean. Our buildings to you would seem terribly small, but to us who aren't big, they are wonderfully tall. My town is called Whoville, for I am a Who, and we Whos are all thankful and grateful to you." And Horton called back to the mayor of the town, "You're safe now, don't worry, I won't let you down." But then as he spoke to the mayor of the speck, 3 big jungle monkeys climbed up Horton's neck. The Wickersham's brothers came shouting, "What rot? This elephant talks to Whos who are not. There aren't any Whos, and they don't have a mouth. And we're going to stop all this nonsense so fast." They snatched Horton's clover. They carried it off to a black-bottomed eagle named Vladikoff, a mighty strong eagle of very swift wing. And they said, "Would you kindly get rid of this thing?" And before the poor elephant even could speak, that eagle flew off with a flower in his beak. All that late afternoon and far into the night, the black-bottomed bird flapped his wings in fast flight, while Horton chased after with groans over stones that tattered his toenails and battered his bones, and begged, "Please don't harm my little folks who have as much right to live as us bigger folks do." But far, far beyond him, that eagle kept flapping, and over his shoulder called back, "Quit your yapping. I'll find you tonight. I'm a bird. I don't find it. And I'll hide this tomorrow, but you'll never find it." And at 6:56 the next morning he did it. It sure was a terrible place that he hid it. He let that small clover drop somewhere inside of a great patch of clovers 100 miles wide. "Finds that," sneered the bird, "but I think you'd be fair." And he left with the flip of his black-bottomed tail. "I'll find it," cried Horton. "I'll find it with bust. I shall find my friends on that small speck of dust." And clover by clover by clover with care, he picked one and called it, and searched and called, "Are you there?" But clover by clover by clover he found that the one that he searched for was just not around. And by noon poor old Horton, more dead than alive, had picked, searched, and piled up 9,005. Then on through the afternoon, hour after hour, till he found them at last on the 3 millionth flower. "My friends," cried the elephant, "tell me, do tell. Are you safe? Are you sound? Are you whole? Are you well?" From down on the speck came the voice of the mayor. "We've really had trouble, much more than our share. When we landed, when that black-bottomed birdie let go and we dropped, we landed so hard that our clocks have all stopped. Our teapots are broken, our rocking chair smashed, and our bicycle tires all blew up when we crashed. So Horton, please," pleaded the voice of the mayor's, "will you stick by us Whos while we're making repairs?" "Of course," Horton answered, "of course I will stick. I'll stick by you small folks through thin and through thin." Hummed the voice. For almost 2 days you went round and insisted on chatting with persons who've never existed. Such carrying on in our peaceable jungle. I've had quite enough of your bellowing bungle. I'm here to state, snapped the sour kangaroo, that your silly nonsensical game is all through. And the young kangaroo pouch said, "Me too." With the help of the Wickersham brothers and dozens of Wickersham uncles and cousins, and Wickersham in-laws who helped by engaged, you're going to be roped, and you're going to be caged. And as for your dust speck, that we will boil in a steaming hot kettle of bees on the oil. "Boil it?" asked Horton. "Oh, that you can too. It's all full of persons. They'll prove it to you." Mr. Mayor, Horton shouted, "Mr. Mayor, you've got to prove now that you really are there. So call a big meeting, get everyone out, make every who holler, make every who shout, make every who scream. If you don't, every who is going to end up in beezelnut stew." And down on the dust speck, the scared little mayor could call the big meeting in Whoville Town Square. And as people cried loudly, they cried out in fear, "We are here, we are here, we And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me neither." "Grab him," they shouted, "and cage the big dope. Lasso his hurt stomach with 10 miles of rope. Tie the knot so tight they'll never shake loose. Then dump that dump stack in the beetle-nut juice." Horton fought back with great vigor and vim, but the Wickersham gang were too many for him. They beat him, they mauled him, they started to haul him into his cage, but he managed to call to the mayor, "Don't give up, I believe in you all. A person's a person no matter how small. And you very small persons will not have to die if you make yourselves heard. So come on now and try." And the mayor grabbed a tom-tom. He started to smack it, and all over Whoville they whooped up a racket. They rattled tin kettles, they beat on brass pans, on garbage pail tops and old cranberry cans. They blew on bazookas and blasted great toots on clarinets and oompas and boompas and flutes. Great gusts of loud racket rang high through the air. They rattled and shook the whole sky, and the mayor called up to Horton out of the hullabaloo, "Hey Horton, how's this? Is our sound coming through?" And Horton called back, "I can hear you just fine, but the kangaroo's ears aren't as strong quite as mine. They don't hear a thing. Are you sure all your boys are doing their best? Are they all making noise? Are you sure every who down in Whoville is working? Quick, look through your town. Is there anyone shirking?" Through the town rushed the mayor from the east to the west, but everyone seemed to be doing his best. Everyone seemed to be yapping or yipping. Everyone seemed to be beeping or bipping, but it wasn't enough, all this ruckus and roar. He had to find someone to help him make more. He raced through each building. He searched floor to floor. And just when he felt he was getting nowhere and almost about to give up in despair, he suddenly burst through the door, and that man discovered one shirker, quite hidden away in Fairfax Apartments 12J. A very small shirker named Jojo was just standing, and bouncing a yo-yo, not making a sound, not a yip, not a chirp. And the mayor rushed inside and grabbed the young twerp. And he climbed with the lad of the Eichelberg Tower. "This," cried the mayor, "is your town's darkest hour. This is the time for whose of all blood that is red to come to the aid of their country," he said. "We've got to make noises in greater amounts, so open your mouth, lad, for every voice counts." And thus he spoke as he climbed, and when he got to the top, the lad cleared his throat, and he shouted out, "Yah!" And that yacht, that one small extra yacht, put it over. Finally, from the speck on that clover, their voices were heard. They rang out clear and clean. The elephant smiled. "Do you see what I mean? They prove they are persons, no matter how small. And the whole world was saved by the smallest of all." "How true, yes, how true," said the big kangaroo. "And from now on, you know what I'm going to plan to do. From now on, I'm going to protect them with you." And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "From sun in the summer, from rain when it's smallish, I'm going to protect them, no matter how smallish." A person, no matter how small. A lot goes on in the story when we think about a person, when we think about Horton here as a who. First of all, here's the who, and he has to do a lot of stuff to keep them protected. And so what we're going to be doing right now is looking over a couple different things, kind of unpacking what's going on here. First off, the first thing I notice is that all people are worthy of our love and protection. And I think actually before we even go there, what does Horton mean when he says a person's a person no matter how small? Maybe a better question is, what did Dr. Seuss mean?
What year was this written?
That's a great question. I had that written down on another thing.
Yeah, something like that.
54.
Oh, wow.
1954. What did he mean? Come on. I know it's late. I know you're tired. We're still in this though. We're talking about Dr. Seuss. We just read a story. What did Horton mean? It's not a trick question. Everyone has value. He hears the voice and he says that they're a person. And when we say that, he's not saying human. There's an important reason why he uses the term person. He's saying they are a person just like I'm a person, right? He's an elephant, but he understands that they have value just like I have value. They're different. They're small. They're too small to be seen. They're too small to be heard by most people. And yet, they have value. And that's important to get. That's what he recognizes this, and he sees that all people are worthy of love and protection. So one more time, we're going to go to Genesis 1 again. I know it keeps coming up. See, when you write things like this in sermons, you keep hitting on the same thing. But you have weeks and weeks. You guys get all really condensed just in a few days. But what happens in this is that it gives us so much. It sets up so much when we talk about love and what it means to be a human. And it's a well that I come back to and drink from again and again. Genesis 1:26 through 28 reads this way. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, the livestock and all the earth, and all the creatures that crawl on the earth." So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them, male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, and the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth." So what we see here, the important part I want you to get, is that mankind, human people, are created in the image of God. There are many ways in which the image of God has been defined. Some say we literally look like God. Some say we mirror him in our nature. Some say we share his functional role in creation, or our relational nature to each other, or in our spiritual and moral qualities. There's a lot of different ways it's been defined. And we can fight about that if we want. But the fact is that the fact of the matter is that we are created with that reality. Whatever the reality is, it's there. And what is important is to recognize that even though a couple people bit from a fruit, apple or kiwi, does that mean that we lose the image of God? And what we recognize is no, it doesn't mean that. In Genesis 9:6, it says, "Whoever sheds man's blood, his blood will be shed by man. For God made man in his image." So the image of God is not a thing that starts in Genesis and then it's lost. It doesn't start in Genesis 1 and is lost by Genesis 3. After Genesis 3, it's still an important reality that's continuing in people. It's still happening in Genesis 9:6, and the reason for the laws that are given to Noah here. So between Genesis 1 and 9, there's Genesis 3. The fall doesn't make us lose the image of God. So the image of God, how would you define it? How would you describe it? What phrase would you use? Maybe talk amongst your tables for a second and come up with maybe one that your table would use. All right. That was quick. Did you stop time you were discussing? Do you need another minute? Yes, that's no. What'd you get? What's your tables get?
It's his nature, it's his qualities, his creativeness, to create creation and to rule over it. And I think, basically those rules he gives right there in that verse kind of shows you.
Yeah.
What he was endowing.
The roles, and that's how we would describe it, this kind of position that we have in creation as this. Oh yeah, I like that. What about over here? Either of these tables?
I said co-ruling.
Co-ruling, yeah. Okay, yeah. Definitely. Okay. Okay. I was also asking if there was a phrase that kind of stuck out to you, something you would say. And I think, maybe you kind of had one and you didn't get a chance to share. I know that was a little fast. Maybe I'll slow it down for our next questions. One way that I like to describe it, the phrase I like to use is the spark of the divine. Something, did you guys say that?
I told her to say it.
Hey, it's good. Something in you, deep within, burns with the fire of the God of the universe. No one has a right to put that out. You are in the image of God, flawed and broken, as damaged as that image may be. It still exists and gives you worth and value. Never lose sight of that. And praise God that others have it too. It's not just you and me in this room, but everyone you meet has a burning spark of the divine within them. So write that down on your paper, in your Bible, somewhere. If you're near Genesis 1, it's great. But write, they have the spark of the divine. They have the spark of the divine. What I want this to remind you of is when you are interacting with your neighbors, when you're interacting with your friends, when you're acting with your rivals in whatever sport you're in, when you're interacting with your bosses or your employees, think, this person has the spark of the divine. Imagine a fire, maybe unstoked, maybe smoldering, but it is there, and it gives them infinite worth. Infinite worth. Every single person has an infinite worth. It changes, when you put that into perspective, it changes how you look at people. When you begin to see that people have infinite worth, it makes your road rage begin to change. The person who cut you off, the jerk who nearly made you run off the road because they were more important than you and had to cut in front of you, you know that person. You felt it. I know. You've been there. That person has infinite worth. It makes you question your browser history. It makes you wonder about the memes you share and the jokes you tell. Be funny, tell jokes, share memes, but always remember that the people that we look at, the people that we interact with, and that we are talking about have the spark of the divine. They bear the image of God and are worthy of love and protection, especially those who are cast down. And so I want to be very careful when I say this next part. God is not fair. God is not fair. What is fairness? Getting what you deserve. Okay.
Everybody getting equal.
Everybody getting equal. It could, and the way I have this down here is, it could be that people all are treated in the same way, or all people get out of things what they put in. But either way, God is not fair. If he was fair in the latter sense, that everybody gets what they put in, gets out what they put in, I would have no eyes, no hands, no tongue, and perfect ears. I know that's a graphic image, but it's what I, in a sense, fairly deserve. Because when Jesus said, it'd be better for you if you sin with your eyes, gouge it out. If you sin with your hands, cut it off. And that's, in a sense, what I deserve. If I sin in every part, I would be a stone. Because I've sinned with every part of me. But it is by the mercy of God that God withholds what we deserve. And his grace is what gives us what we could never earn. But in the former sense, that we're all treated the same is equally false. People do not get treated the same. Quick side note, the Torah is full of commands to not show partiality, or to the rich or to the poor, but to judge fairly. By human standards, this is good. People are righteous or evil. People are not righteous or evil because they are poor. They are not righteous or evil because they are rich. People are mixes of good and bad, and sinful throughout. And a person can be guilty of crimes against the Torah no matter their economic status. So it doesn't matter in that regard. God is saying, treat everyone, judge everyone fairly. But there are special mention and protections for the poor and defenseless. And that's what we get in Exodus 22. Exodus 22, 21 through 27 says this: "You must not exploit a foreign resident or oppress him, since you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. You must not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. If you do mistreat them, they will no doubt cry to me, and I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will burn, and I will kill you with the sword." I want you to pay attention to what he just said. "If you mistreat any widow or fatherless child, I will hear their cry, and my anger will burn, and judgment will come. And then your wives will be widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to my people, to the poor person among you, you must not be like a money lender to him. You must not charge him interest. If you ever take your neighbor's cloak as collateral, return it to him before sunset. For it is his only covering. It is the clothing for his body. What will he sleep in? And if he cries out to me, I will listen, because I am compassionate." When we look here, God is saying, you have to treat them better than the world treats the fatherless, the broken, the poor. And this is what God doesn't treat people fairly. He says that he cares for certain people in certain ways. Isaiah 1:16 and 17 says, "Wash yourselves, cleanse yourselves, remove your evil deeds from my sight. Stop doing evil, learn to do what is good, seek justice, correct the oppressor, defend the rights of the fatherless, plead the widow's cause." Isaiah 58:5-7. Will the fast I choose be this? A day for a person to deny himself, to bow his head like a reed, or to bow his head like a truffle tree, to spread out in sackcloth and ashes? Will you call a fast and a day acceptable to the Lord? Isn't this the fast I choose? To break the chains of wickedness, to untie the ropes of the yoke, and to set the oppressed free, and to tear off every yoke. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and to bring the poor and homeless into your house? To clothe the naked when you see him, and to not ignore your own flesh and blood. Here again, Psalm 82:3. Provide justice for the needy and the fatherless. Uphold the rights of the oppressed and the destitute. Zechariah 7:10. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor, and do not plot evil in your hearts against one another. Who is he saying you should be protecting? Who is he saying to show justice to show mercy to show compassion to? Foreigners, poor people. Who else? The least advantaged. That's a great way to say it. What does he say? What did he say in the Exodus? I will strike you with the sword, and then your wives will be widowed, and your children will be fatherless. The widow and the fatherless, the foreigner, the poor, all are voiceless in the society. When we talk about, when they say voiceless, it meant that in that day, they didn't have a right to speak up. They didn't have a right to have their voice heard. Because who is the power source in a home? The adult male. A child had no rights. So the orphan who had no father had no one to plead his cause before the judges, had no one to take his case to the king and say, hey, look, you should protect me, this is going wrong. He had no one to do that because his father wasn't in the home. A widow had no one to plead their case, and therefore she was voiceless in society. The stranger wasn't a Jew, and therefore voiceless in society. The poor had no money to bring their case, to pay recompense when things went wrong. They were voiceless in society. Liberation theologians have called this, all these verses that talk about God caring for the poor and commanding his people to care for the poor, as God's preferential option for the poor. When determining the course of history, God is constantly striving to correct the oppression of marginalized people. Jesus, God's Son, and the fullest expression of God's image, strived to be on the side of the poor and the oppressed by his very existence. The Word made flesh was born to a manual laborer, to the poor, oppressed, and invaded people in the corner of a massive empire built on military power that crushed its opposition. He was an itinerant preacher, funded by widows, bumping up against a militaristic empire on one side with Rome, and with a religious order bent on the status quo on the other. And Jesus was going right between those two. We have the beauty to know that God justified his claims by the resurrection after he was wrongfully convicted, just like the poor and sentenced to death. In Luke 11:42, he says, "Woe to you, Pharisees! You give a tenth of mint, rue, and every kind of herb, and you bypass justice and love for God. These things you should have done, the tithing you should have done, without neglecting the others." Matthew 25:31 through 46. It's quite a passage. Turn to Matthew 25. 31 through 46. So we see that God has a preferential option for the poor, and Jesus in his existence had it, and in his teachings he expresses it. Matthew 25:31 through 46. "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another, just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me.'" It is very warm right now. It is very warm. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm seeing fans going, "I'm hot." I'm always hot and loud, so I know we're taking a break in the middle of this, but if anybody wants to go turn the temperature down a little bit, I won't be opposed. That's just me. "I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or without clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "I assure you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on the left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." Woo! Woo! Talk about hot! Talk about hot! The eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Why? "For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't take me in. I was naked, and you didn't clothe me. I was in prison, and you didn't take care of me." And they too will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or without clothes or sick or in prison and not help you?" Then he will answer them, "I assure you, whatever you did not do for the least of these, you did not do for me either." Whew! "And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." God and Jesus show us that God loves all equally, and they all bear his divine image. But in our working in the world, we are called to especially care for those who cannot care for themselves. So turn to your table. I'm going to give you a little bit more time to think about this one and to ponder it. Do you agree that God has a preferential option for the poor? Does that phrase make you uncomfortable? If it does, why? How important does Jesus think caring for the poor an anemia is. Give yourself a couple minutes on that.
That's a good place to start, to go the exact opposite.
Well, which isn't to say you need.
So what the prosperity.
Oh, trust me. It's not saying you have to be. You need to take care of. That's word blessed.
It's calling us to take over its people's needs.
What I was doing, which allows us that parable, rich man was just lived. Obviously, every day, forming by a gate, covering the sores, he wanted to get food, but he got nothing, and he died. Later on, the rich man died, and the parable shows us the rich man being in place.
It says equally chooses to
Showing it.
don't
You've done all this time, you have no one.
fair.
I wonder if that
He's fair and
parable
unfair.
is a nice, interesting way of telling the story. You know, like,
You have about 30 seconds to kind of wrap up your conversations.
so this is how we take care of how we use our.
Does God give
That's how we
a poor person higher priority than someone else? Jesus said that it's so hard for the guy who's perfect in terms of Christian living commands to
All right,
what he had to sell. He said
they're going to come back together.
every.
We want to think about that. You know, how important is it? I heard some really good conversations, and when we look at this, what's the reality is that because we've heard the voice of God, we're called to hear the voice of the oppressed. You have heard him call out through the oppressed. We're going to talk. It's an essential element of what it means to be the church, to care for the oppressed, for the hurting, for the broken. We're called in the life of the church to continue the ministry of Jesus for the good of the world. It's not a small side note. It's not a small side note in the life of the Christian. A small side note in the life of the Christian is who you voted for. I watch a lot of political commentary and I know a lot about the drama, but that is minuscule. A lot of people think, oh, that's the most important thing right now. Oh, politics. With the election coming up, it seems to be more and more people, that's all they get to talk about. But that's so minuscule compared to the fact that you gave a homeless man a bowl of stew, or making sure that a pregnant mother whose man has run out in her life has access to the love and care of a faith community. That's the big note. That's the big thing. That is what it means to be church. A small side note is the political the politics and the voting and the laws. Maybe we can make that into the Christian thing. We can change some stuff. But the big thing is, what did you do for the least of these brothers of mine? That's what Jesus is going to ask you. What did you do for the least of these brothers of mine? And how are you going to answer? Salvation comes by the grace of Jesus Christ. But he demands some stuff of us, that we take his own words seriously. He says, I'm a king, and the king commands this. You don't get to say, no thanks, king. Like we said earlier, it's no thanks, I don't want to love them. No thanks, I don't want to serve them. That's not your option. If you want Jesus, you get the whole package. And that means the things that he says to do. Oh boy, he's going to start preaching. This is the duty of humanity. Mankind, it says in Micah 6:8, he has told you what is good and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love faithfulness, and to walk humbly with your God. Seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. Why do you think that the kangaroo wanted to destroy the dust bag? Let's just start with that one.
I think they thought Horton had a mental illness.
Yeah. Horton had a mental illness, and maybe they think they're helping him by getting the dust back out.
Maybe when you get rid of this, we won't be all focused on this piece of dust.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but if they knew that there was somebody on the dust back, then they might be responsible and feel guilty.
Yeah.
Whereas if they just destroy it before they know anything,
Yeah.
It also points to the insignificance that we can place on their lives.
Ooh. Yeah. So what if there are persons on it, no matter how small they are, so what?
I don't hear them, I don't see them, they don't.
Right. Ooh. Lost that. Should it be red? The light's red. Should the light be red? Is that a bad thing?
It'll be okay.
Okay, sounds good. I just see red lights, and that's like usually a warning sign. Bad things are about to happen. So if this explodes while I'm wearing it, you just know what happened. It'll be a fun light show. We were saying, you know, what did you say, Susan? I'm sorry, I got distracted. Obviously, I distracted you too.
If they admit that they hear them and see them, then they have to accept that they have value.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like those are really great reasons. But what did the kangaroos say in the story? I've had quite enough of your such carryings on in our peaceable jungle. I've had quite enough of your bellowing bumble. He's just making a racket about it. He's saying there's a dust speck, please don't splash it. He was saying, don't splash water right here. He's not even telling her what to do. He's just just try not to hurt them. I'm not going to make you take care of them, just try not to hurt them. And that was enough encroachment on her life where she's like, this has got to stop. This guy's telling me how to live. Like it's crazy that he's disturbing the peace. But all he's trying to say, hey, let's not splash right here. Everywhere else is fine. He's not telling her how to live. But yeah.
It sounds crazy, and yet the book that was written in 1954, that describes a lot of how people's reactions are to things today.
Well, yeah, and maybe
quite a bit.
Maybe we don't want to go too far into this at the moment, but do you know of anyone that acts that way about real people in our real world?
You watch Lars and the Real Girl, do we know how to treat someone like that?
Well, I don't know what Lars is.
Apparently not so many people do.
Okay.
It was a guy that had a fake mannequin and he thought she was real.
Oh.
Anyways, it's recommended viewing Lars and the Real Girl.
Lars and the Real Girl. All right. Check. On my list. And whatever that is. Like, see what are there people out there? And sometimes this is coming across as, oh yeah, so what if there are unintended casualties? It becomes, what do we call it? Collateral damage. Lies are not collateral. We can see them as those people way over there, and that becomes a problem. How can we help other people? Maybe we want to just kind of think about this one as we move on. How can we help help them, those people like the kangaroo in the story, hear the voices of those people and see their worth? Think about that. But you are called to take initiative. You're called to be the voice for the voiceless. It's not on the voiceless to ask for help because they're voiceless. That's the problem. It's not on those who have no power to say to the powerful, hey, please notice me. It's on those with power to do so. It's on us to ask because we've heard the voice of God who cries out through them. Jesus is not the server, but the one served. When we feed the hungry, that's exactly what Matthew says. When we feed the hungry, when we give water to the thirsty, when we invite the stranger and the foreigner in and clothe the naked and visit the sick and in prison, we are not being Jesus to them. I want you to see that. That's something that we tell ourselves. We usually tell our youth groups because it sounds really good. You know, you may be the only Jesus they ever meet. You may be the only Bible they ever read. Right? And those sound like good phrases, but the biblical reality is that when you go serve, when you hand the bowl of stew to the homeless man, he's Jesus. When you go and you make sure that the woman has access to the diapers because she's keeping the baby, because she decided that that's what I'm going to do, it's better than terminating the pregnancy, that she's Jesus. When you're visiting the man who's in prison, because he made some dumb decisions when he was 18 and now he's locked up for 20 years. He's Jesus. And those are the places where we go. So Jesus says, when you relate to the poorest and the least and the lowest, that's me that you're seeing. You're seeing me in them. When we don't seek out the voiceless and the powerless to serve them, we're not seeking Jesus. Ooh. Sorry, I don't mean to be stepping on toes. I get a little fiery, I get excited. But that's what Matthew says. It's on us to take the initiative, to seek out the poor and the oppressed, and to give them a voice. It's on us to make real change. What can we do to protect those beaten down around the world? And this is a thing where we start, where we think, oh, maybe this is people all around the world, but it's also what's about the people in our own backyard? Who are the people, what are the needs in our own community? Where do we go there? And who has no voice? Who are the voiceless? In our world, I'm going to step on toes real hard, don't care. The unborn. The unborn are the unloved, the murdered, the voiceless masses. Last year, 860,000 plus lives were ended. 52.6 million abortions between 1973 and 2011. I wasn't able to find last time I did this, the newest information that we have. 52 million up till from 73 to 2011. And that many more. That's the voiceless. The immigrant, loving the foreigner in our midst, seeking understanding that the foreigner in our midst is in a culture that they're not familiar with, in search of something better. What is our calling to that? Is our calling to don a MAGA hat and a megaphone and chant "Build the Wall"? Or is there a way that honors the Old and New Testament to respect the laws of our nation and respect the image of God in our international neighbors? I told you I was going to step on toes. You thought I was only going to pick on one side. I'll pick on both. I don't care. That the immigrant, the foreigner, the stranger in our lands, we're called to see them as Christ saw them. And these two groups that we see could also be expanded into our day. Those other ones who do not have a voice, that need to be loved and need to be understood. LGBTQ people, people of color, lower class people, the poor, drug addicts, criminals. Jesus didn't hang out with people who looked, believed, and acted like him, and instead, the righteous, sinless Son of God had dinner parties with prostitutes and apostates, and told them to leave their life of sin and that God loved them. He was a walking mess of all of our best qualities and none of our worst ones. Turn to your group and say what other groups are ones that are the least today, the ones that are most oppressed today. Are there any other groups you can think of?
So you
Covered quite a lot.
Yeah.
Covered quite a lot of groups. Every single one of them, what I want you to get is that every single one of those groups that I said, as upset as I may have made you, what you have to see is that in each and every single one of them, they have the spark of the divine. In every single one of them. So it doesn't matter whether you're upset with me, take it up with God who made them. Take it up with God that He created these people to be loved. Yes, people can make mistakes. We're not denying that. Yes, people can break laws. We're not denying that. But they don't lose their divine spark because they sinned against the eternal God and they didn't lose it, and He still loves them. It doesn't matter what laws they break. We're called to love them too. It doesn't matter what they've done. We're called to love them too. And who are you called to? Who are you being called to? Because while we're called to love these people, sometimes we can't do everything. Like we said, you can't do everything. You can't be the superhero. You can't be the super person. What you're called to do is to find what God is calling you. There's someone in this mix that God's saying, them. Is it the hungry or the thirsty? Is it the naked? Is it the sick? Is it the imprisoned? Is it people of color? Is it the poor? Right? Is it drug addicts? Is it people in the lower class? The church is Horton and the world is full of who's. You may not like the work, but you don't get to choose. When Jesus said love, when He said go and do, He was talking to me. He was talking to you. Care for your neighbor and care for the poor. Care for the needy and care for the sore. The sick and imprisoned, the orphan, the widows. Care for the unborn, the outcast, the losers, the zero. A person's a person, no matter how small. And God says love them, everyone. Love them all. I'm going to pray for us. Jesus isn't calling you to serve everyone, but He's calling you to serve someone. I'm going to pray for us now, asking God to allow us to be Hortons to the world of who's. How we can serve His calling in Jesus' name. Let's pray. God, You are very good. We love You very much. We thank You for this teaching that we're able to see, that You are bigger than the differences that divide us. We pray that You would open our eyes to the world around us and open our ears to the voiceless, that we would hear them, that we would seek them out, and in them find the face of Christ. I pray You will forgive me for those times where I have not been loving, where I have overlooked the voiceless. I pray You will forgive me and help me move past that and into a place where I can be more loving, I can be more open to hearing their cry to You. And God, I pray that You would use each and every one of us here in a way to impact Your world, the least of these, for those who have not had the blessings of this life, that they may have the blessings of the world to come. It's in Jesus' name we pray to Almighty God. Amen. We're dismissed.